Hello everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing fantastic and that you're all having a wonderful day. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. I know I've been saying this all the time, but I can't be the only one who's feeling this. There's just a lot going on at any given time, and you can even extrapolate that, if you will, drag it out to the idea of like the last 3 years. I've been having a lot of discussions with my friends. You've seen me ramble about it here sometimes as well, or even on the other channel. Something feels very odd. It's like a really weird tug of war that a literal one that we're currently in right now, where a lot of the news that we're getting financially is either like, oh my gosh, you can't believe what's about to happen. The cryptocurrency market is about to do a 95x. You've seen the videos, you've seen the news articles. This is why I show you the news articles, to show you exactly what people are saying. And then you have the opposite side, which has been going on for a while. Now, this is even more than like a decade at this point, of this really weird idea of a complete market collapse, meltdown. Everything crashes, everything falls. This is why I made the video on the other channel, for those of you who missed it, of Michael Burry, that guy from The Big Short. Who has recently predicted, I think he put up like $1.6 billion to be like, yeah, I'm going to be correct. In that he believes that the world is literally about to plunge into some type of like financial chaos. The issue is that you can look back to around 2012, thus the video, of him saying this every single year. It's simply people screaming into the wind that the world is about to collapse, and therefore everyone else begins to listen because this person was in a movie, or they heard of this person's name before, or this person got one thing correct. That was a lot of what brought Mike Novogratz and a bunch of other people into like the heavy spotlight within the cryptocurrency space, is that these people at some point announced that they believed that this event was going to happen. And something similar to it happened in 2011, 2012, 2013. And now everyone looks to them every single year for like a mystical, magical ball, kind of like, oh my gosh, this is definitely going to happen. This one is significant because they are say this lightly, a leader in the financial space. And of course, this gained traction not only because of the idea of the destruction of the world's economy, but also it has like 2014, 15, 16, 2017 Bitcoin kind of like things. I hate the word vibes, but the word vibes has to be kind of used there. So anyway, just as like a little like precursor to everything that we're going to be talking about. Forbes. Yes, Forbes has bought attention to an impending transformation within the cryptocurrency market. They released a new report, and it is called US Dollar Collapse. The shock of $8 trillion predicted Fed inflation flip to spark a critical Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP crypto price boom to rival gold. And like that's the whole title. US dollar collapse, shock $8 trillion predicted Fed inflation flip to spark a critical Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and crypto price boom to rival gold. Very, very long title indeed. What a lot of this has to do with is an amalgamation, like a gigantic like slap together of multiple different ideas. We have seen the idea of a US dollar collapse. For those of you who like history, have looked through history, especially financial, economic history. The idea of a US dollar collapse has been around since around 1972. After the US left the gold standard, people were predicting in a decade the US dollar would collapse. In the 80s, we had the US dollar was going to collapse. In the early 90s, people believed, for those of you who, once again, didn't read any type of economic news, the idea was that in the 90s, Japan was going to take over. You might notice, if you've ever watched any movies from the 80s or early 90s, A lot of them, if they're futuristic, they take place usually within Asia. They're usually written in Japanese, like signs are written in Japanese. The characters may be Charlize Theron and all these other people. But the idea was that people believed that in the 90s, Japan was going to completely take over the world economically, and the US dollar was going to collapse. By the time we got to 2001, you know what happened on that year. People predicted a US dollar collapse. By the time we got to 2008 and the world's markets began to collapse, people predicted a US dollar collapse. So now that we're in 2023 and the world has reached unprecedented levels of inflation, debt, what have you, so on and so forth. For those of you, if you ever get a chance to look into it, you'll find a lot of videos and articles and other things floating around out there that talk about the current debt situation. The market is kind of made in this way, and I'll put my words together to just say this. A lot of people assume that the people who make economic policies don't know what's going on. So they assume that this person walks into a room, hits a button, and prints money and doesn't think of the actual consequences of it. They understand what the consequences are. Like, they know exactly more or less what they're doing. They understand what it means to print more. They understand what it means to take on extra debt. But this is how the system terribly is actually meant to be. They know that, and you should also know that. It's actually nearly impossible for any country to pay back their debt, and they're expected to never actually do so. It's kind of like if you hit one domino, like they all become dust at the exact same time. So there's just something where these countries know that this debt will never be paid back. It'll never be paid off. And it's this continual cycle because the world runs on debt. And I think that's something that a lot of, I don't want to say normal people who aren't into economics or who kind of lead and live normal lives are completely unaware of. So you have a lot of people, billions of people who are not into finance, who are not into money, who take out debt simply to live. They want to go on a cruise. They want to buy a new couch. They want to do so and so. That's what's actually propelling the world's economy forward. I'm not sure if I'm like blowing someone's mind right now. The idea is that the more people that there are on the planet, the more people that could potentially be in debt. When you are in debt, there's a reason why it's strung out. It's not simply like, hey, this couch is $3,000. I recently realized that couches are super expensive. And then, you don't have to pay it back in 1 week. They say, pay it back to me over the course of 3 to 4 years. And you go, cool, my payments are only $57 a month, random number. Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to only pay $57 as opposed to $4,000. The idea is that you are supposed to be in debt for a long amount of time, and this is what paves the way forward for other things. When these companies are buying up these mega structures, these like huge buildings, you may have seen them in a big city near you. They're not doing it with liquid, like that's to say money, like money that they have at that moment. It's based off of debt. The debt then gets repaid in some sort of way over the course of a long period of time for the new tenants who get put in and who are paying rent, and or the people who are buying up the properties inside the building. And even then, there's still like a 10 to 15 year debt cycle. Everything runs on debt because the system is absolutely terrible. Like you should not be in debt because you want to buy a couch or you're trying to buy a home. And this is part of the reason, I'm trying not to segue too much, but this is part of the reason why we have Bitcoin. The idea is that we should live on a debt-free system where your money is simply your money. And that is kind of there is no creation of extra money or creation of extra Bitcoin to be able to fuel the system further. The system should be fueled by simply what we have right now. As more money flows into Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin goes higher, then you have to spend less. We live in a deflationary economy where essentially things get cheaper and cheaper every year as Bitcoin's price rises. And I just heard someone say it, but deflation is terrible. No, it's actually not. The idea of deflation being bad comes down to governments having a hard time with deflation, because governments only look better and better each year because of inflation. When a country's GDP goes up every year, it shows that that country has issued more debt, has printed more money, and that they are essentially growing. If the GDP and that prices have risen also for the consumers. If the GDP goes down, it essentially means that the government isn't making as much money as they did before, but people within the country have been able to save more money. If you remember the 2020 and 2021, you know what happened. Part of the problem was that the GDP in a number of countries was going down. You might remember people were sent checks and were told to go out and go buy some more stuff because they needed that to fuel the economy. The issue is that people went into money saving mode and they began to save more money than they ever had before because people were terrified of the thing that was going on, and therefore consumer spending went down. People saved more money, people became richer, but the GDPs of a lot of different countries began to falter. That's the general idea. For those of you who never this is kind of old, but not really, maybe 3, 4, 5 years old, is one of the ideas of Bitcoin. If we have a Bitcoin that ends up being $1 million and we end up in an economy where Bitcoin was the only currency, stay with me here. And we saw that the price of Bitcoin every year continued to rise as more people put their US dollars and euros and lost faith more and more and more in fiat into Bitcoin. We saw that Bitcoin one year was 1 million. The next year it's 1.1 million. The next year is 1.4 million. You would actually see the prices of things that you buy actually decrease. So that couch that you wanted to buy that was 4,000, you know that next year it would be around 3,300. So you would say, I think I'm actually going to save my Bitcoin, save my money, and actually wait for the price of this thing to go down until I actually want to buy it. This is terrible for the government and the people who print money because this is how they end up losing power. The point of Bitcoin is for the power to be in the hands of the actual citizens. And this is why you've seen so much backlash over the last couple of years against Bitcoin, because it goes against the generalized idea of what money is supposed to be, who's supposed to create money, and he who prints the money, he who holds the money has all the power. That's the idea of Bitcoin. I tried not to get too completely off track with the entire thing, but a lot of people don't understand what this entire thing is for. Like, I know that a lot of people are here just to make like quick, cold, hard cash, but you have to understand that we are seeing the transformation of like economics completely in front of us. And people will be talking about this in 50 years as like monumental events. And everyone's just worried about like buying a new pair of shoes, buying a new so-and-so, buying a new car for their girlfriend. And it's like, you are actually witnessing history. So the US dollar collapse has been kind of predicted, thrown around for a very long amount of time. The idea is that on top of this was a discussion that has now been once again been dug up from the earth. It's the idea of inflation continuing, the Fed not being able to get inflation under control. For those of you who missed it, this was a couple of days ago. The Fed kind of hinted during their minutes that they may be planning another interest rate hike. Sure, just do it at this point. I'm tired of the runaround and being like, are we gonna do it? Should we do it? Just do it. Like we all know that you're going to do it at this point. And I said this at the beginning of the year. If they were planning on raising it by 3, 4, 5% over the course of a year, just do it at once. We'd have a major market shock. We would have had this in January or February. Everyone would have lost their minds. But by the time we got to April or May, things would have begun to move back up. But they keep doing it slowly. And this is the problem that a lot of the market continues to have. Now, there's also rumors that they may continue doing it next year. I'm also seeing a lot of conflicting ideas that the Fed may actually, continue raising interest rates just at the beginning of next year, and or they may stop it. And there's also some people talking about that the Fed may lower the interest rate, because if you've looked at anything that's happening within the stock market right now, you would assume that things are kind of, A-okay. Things are, pretty good, but they're actually not. What's leading the race within the stock market right now is the tech sector and the AI sector. And this is why you see a lot of tech companies doing extremely well, dragging up the S&P 500 and dragging up the Dow Jones, because the perception is that the future is going to be digitized, AI-atized, you kind of name it. But the rest of the world actually isn't doing well because of the high interest rates, because it's more difficult to see. Here we go. It's more difficult for people to now take out debt because of the higher interest rates, and debt is what the world runs on. So if the interest rates are 1 or 2%, people are far more likely to get credit cards and to take out mortgages. However, if it's 7, 8%, people are like, I really don't want to. And then the world ends up slowing down because the world is a debt-based market. So the news is that the Fed continuing to raise interest rates might actually cause the opposite reaction for the cryptocurrency space, and also plus that them actually stopping to raise interest rates may then be a boom for the debt sector, and then also a lot of money printing may have to happen. We already have seen if you glazed over this news or simply did not see it, a lot of the news right now is about China's economy. They are not doing well. And the idea is that would send ripples across the entirety of the rest of the planet, because I believe their government and two others have announced that they're basically going to turn back on the money printer. It won't be as crazy at the moment right now as before, but the idea is that the U.S. will eventually have to do this, and this is kind of the way that it's looking. The US dollar has only survived because they've printed more of it. And with the printing and the continual issuance of debt, and because of inflation, the US has been able to buy a tremendous amount of assets around the world and be as strong as they are. And if the money printer is basically off, you can't do that in the same exact magnitude. The problem is that if you turn the money printer back on, inflation will go back up, which is what the Fed claims that they've been trying to stop over the course of the last 3 or so years. They're not doing as well of a job as they said that they were going to do. But the moment you do that, the stock market begins to rise once again, because people essentially kind of have free money once again. That free money then also translates into extra money that pushes into the cryptocurrency space. The price of Bitcoin goes up. People realize that they should have been buying Bitcoin the entire time. Their reliance and or idea of US dollar dominance continues to fall as they see that the US dollar has a new 6-7% inflation rate. Bitcoin's price goes to 120,000. You understand the cycle. That's kind of the generalized idea of all of this. And also the idea to rival gold is something we've been talking about for a while. Very quickly, the idea is that Bitcoin's price, I forgot how high it has to go. I want to say 250,000. I don't know the exact number anymore. But the idea is that if Bitcoin ever gets to that number and basically surpasses the market cap of gold, people would then lose faith in gold and begin to sell off their gold to push that money into Bitcoin, causing Bitcoin to rise a lot further, therefore becoming the new digital gold. You've seen it everywhere. Bitcoin's digital gold. That's the idea of it, is that Bitcoin mathematically continuously continues to rise. We know exactly how much there is. We continue to dig more gold out of the ground every single year because technology increases. We find new ways to make machines and how to dig deeper. So as gold continues to increase, the amount that we actually have on the planet, and Bitcoin does not, there's a cap on how much there can be. At some point, Bitcoin's price will rise high enough. It'll overshadow. This is why, maybe a month or two ago, we had one of those charts and it was showing Bitcoin's market cap right now with the price low relative to other major banks around the world. It was completely over them and was overshadowing these other banks. So that, that's kind of the generalized idea. But once again, dragging it all back, I like to give explanations. I want people to understand what's going on. It seems completely pointless just to give you news without any basic context. I want you to really understand exactly what's happening. The issue why this made such gigantically big news was because it's Forbes. Forbes is a mega market participant money maker in the space. And if you release an article talking about that the US dollar is going to collapse and that there's going to be trillions of dollars flowing into the cryptocurrency space, of course, people are going to begin to pay attention. That long title shows that the crypto market might be preparing for a massive boom to actually rival gold. In the report, Forbes suggests that there is potential for a massive $8 trillion to exit the U.S. financial system, driven by concerns of an impending U.S. dollar crisis. This development could have far-reaching implications for Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and other digital assets. Although Forbes presents some hope for the crypto market, highlighting that a leak from a major tech company shows a potential for a turnaround, I think it's Microsoft. We had news a couple of, maybe 2 weeks ago. There was a leak that apparently Microsoft is doing something techie, crypto-y, and I think they found information that I think in their next Xbox, they basically found a cryptocurrency wallet patent inside of it somewhere. The report acknowledges that XRP and other major cryptocurrencies have lost momentum that they had when they were entering 2023. It's because things have continued to be bad. We're constantly fighting this holy war with Gary Gensler all the time, just trying to like get basic regulations and things going on within the cryptocurrency space. It's not surprising at all that momentum has been lost because of everything that we've been going through constantly. Oh my gosh, the amount of news right now about FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried and his girlfriend or his ex, I don't care who this woman is, you know that, so it's not you. Like, I'm not pointing the finger at you, but this is more of I think a lot of people who write these articles don't understand that like AI is reading it and like it actually trades based off of like what is being read over and over, and negative news has a negative impact on prices. This is why you'll see, like, if you hear about like high frequency traders, it's not that they're humans sitting in a room who are trading like 300, 400 times per minute. Like, no one can move that fast. These are machines. And the way that AI even worked before, like, I'm not talking about AI being able to like make art or like write your essay for you so you can graduate college. What even high frequency trading AI has been doing for years is that when an article comes out, it reads it and it trades based off of that knowledge and that news. And there's been so much news recently of the thing that's going on with Alameda and FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried sitting in a courtroom. And I showed you the other day, like, someone was complaining that he cut his hair and peanut butter and a whole bunch of other nonsense. But all the stuff that's going on right now with his ex talking about he was trying to push Bitcoin down below 20,000 and he wanted to buy a Porsche and he was talking, and it's like, who cares? Like, but the amount of news and the popularity of it is only being eaten up by the AI. So of course this is also going to have a negative impact on prices. Like, it's just this really weird loop that the world keeps going in. Like, I saw only one article. I don't have it here because it's not relevant, but there was only one article that was like, is Sam Bankman-Fried actually that important? And I read through it and they were like, once again, logically, he's not the only person who did what he is claimed to have done. It's fairly common practices to actually move money around like that, except that, like, wink, he got caught and everyone else kind of didn't. But yeah, the FTX news is like, stop it. It's so completely toxic to continue reading this news every single day. You'll never meet Sam Bankman-Fried. You'll never meet his girlfriend. You'll never meet any of these people. You're not involved in their lives. 99% of you did not lose money from FTX or Alameda or Genesis. Why are you so concerned with like what's happening with these people? It's very, very weird. The world is incredibly odd right now. Here's a tweet for it right here. Yada, yada, yada. Forbes points out that analysts at Jefferies, another like high money net worth something or other, a well-regarded equity research and strategy firm, predicted the potential collapse of the U.S. dollar as the Federal Reserve might be compelled to print more money in the very near term, as they say that the Fed is grappling with a $33 trillion debt spiral. So how do it's difficult because a lot of times we are presented with news and I think that people kind of want me to give them like an unrealistic expectation of potentially what's going to happen. The US dollar has lost a significant portion of its value since the 1970s, but they knew this as they did this. It's not like we, me, you, I, us are the only ones who are privy to the idea of the US dollar losing value. The people who print money around the world, they know that their currencies are losing value, but they're also able to print more of it to be able to acquire more assets and issue more debt. And that's just how the system is kind of made to run. So there is no real chance of a US dollar collapse. There's a continued chance of the US dollar continuing to lose its value, people getting tired of inflation, and at some point one day figuring out that they should potentially maybe move their money into a decentralized currency that would continue gaining value over the course of the next decades, what have you. But this constant, and it's so easy to find. I've shown you all before in multiple videos, this entire idea of this like looming crisis, the thing that's hovering above us. What's happening to the US dollar? Where are things like the US dollar will continue to exist in some form for probably the next 40 to 50 years. It will not be as strong as it currently is right now, as other countries are really getting annoyed with the US dollar, and they have been since the 1940s. We've gone over that as well. A lot of the stuff that we're getting right now isn't new news. The idea that countries are trying to get rid of the US dollar isn't something that because you found out about finance in 2017 is now like a thing. Countries have been trying to get away from the US dollar since the 1940s. The US dollar is too strong to get away against or from, and therefore you are kind of forced to use it and or settle things in the US dollar. It's the same exact thing with like the gold monopoly. We know that gold prices are manipulated, the same exact thing with silver. Like every single thing like is kind of by design. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of times we get news and people think that like, oh my gosh, I read yesterday. And it's like, no, it's the same exact thing with BRICS. That is BRICS. These people have been trying to get their own currency since like the 1990s, like 1992. When you see, and I've been reading it, and the people have been telling me to talk about it. No, it's absolute nonsense. The countries that make up BRICS have terribly, horribly, awfully corrupt structures, and also they're completely corrupt. They banded together in this like really weird quest to try and create their own currency and have been doing it for a while. All attempts have failed because of corruption. And anything that they do put together ends up crumbling and will never be able to stand up to the US dollar. XRP has a much higher chance of becoming an actual world currency or world reserve currency than the BRICS currency could ever have. Just because you heard about BRICS at the beginning of this year and now you think that it's going to rival the US dollar, they've been doing this for almost 30 something years and it has not worked and is not going to work. The people who print the US dollar know that the value of the US dollar continues to fall. This is why prices rise. This is why we have inflation. This is why it behooves all of you to read books about the economy. And even ones that you may not even agree with. You have to get like different perspectives on what's happening around the world. You have to understand like economic policies and how they formed. It's very important for you economically. Yeah, this was very, very big news. Everyone's talking about it. Kind of this like, woe is us, things falling apart, don't understand where things are going. This is going to be completely insane. This is also tying heavily into the narrative of Bitcoin's halving coming up. Everyone's excited and or eager and or looking at where things are going to go, how high prices are going to go, and the idea of the US dollar collapsing at the same time, and therefore they have to print more money, would be a big, step forward to being able to push Bitcoin up to X certain amounts of numbers. You might remember at the beginning of this year, 2023, there were a lot of news articles where people were saying that the US dollar was going to collapse by March. Remember that one guy who put up $1 million and was like, nope, Bitcoin's going to $1 million by April. You must remember, like you can find it. It was in one of my videos. You can even find it on Google. His idea was that the US dollar collapse was imminent. Like it is happening this week. And I told you in the video, I was like, it's not going to happen. The US dollar is not going to collapse this week. And his idea was that 3 weeks after, everyone would be throwing all their money into Bitcoin and Bitcoin would hit $1 million. We also had someone else say that at the end of this year, Bitcoin was going to 120,000. Why? Because the US dollar was going to collapse. It's just people screaming into the wind, but the problem is they're screaming loud enough that people are listening to them. So, yeah, very different video. I do sincerely hope that you have all enjoyed. What was I going to say? I don't remember. I'm coming out of a cold, so sorry if I'm talking too slow or like if you can hear that my nose is stuffed. Like I got sick randomly a couple days ago, and then like it's going away, but like it's still kind of annoying. So I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and or supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.